Hello, I'm Father Tom Welbers, a retired priest of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and I'm very grateful to you, the people of St. Anthony of Padua Parish in Gardena, as well as your pastor, Father George, and Madonna Castro, for your kind and gracious invitation for me to join you for this coming week in a parish mission, a mission in which we will be able to follow Jesus' invitation to come and walk with him and discover what it means to walk with him during Lent, what it is that he has to tell us and to point out to us during this Lenten journey with him about our journey through life. In today's gospel, we meet a man who is sitting by the side of the road in Jerusalem, minding his own business, and his business is begging because he's blind. There is nothing else that he can do except depend on the generosity of others to help him to sustain himself, to help to make some kind of a living for himself. The gospel does not tell us that he asked Jesus for a cure, for a healing. He did not approach Jesus and say, as the blind Bartimaeus did, "Lord, that I may see." He simply was sitting there. And all of a sudden he found himself the subject of a conversation, an argument really, because Jesus' disciples were arguing about him as to whose fault was it that he was born blind. Was it because his parents had committed some sin, or had he himself been a sinner? Now imagine how you feel when you find yourself the object of some other people's conversation, especially if they're arguing over your own morality, your own moral faults, perhaps an argument that they never intended you to be eavesdropping on. Well, that's pretty much what happened to this man. He was being treated as an object, not even a participant in a conversation. And without his being asked, remember in other instances, Jesus is asked by the people, "Lord, heal me. Lord, make me clean. Lord, give me my sight. Lord, that I may hear." No, Jesus isn't even asked. He simply, unasked, spits on the ground, makes a little mud pie out of his saliva, and puts it on the man's eyes, and tells him, "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam down there." And so he does it. And when he washes his eyes, he can see. Then, after having been the subject of the disciples wondering about his family's sinfulness, he becomes embroiled in a controversy, an argument with the religious leaders of that city over Jesus. And he finds himself having unasked for the healing. Suddenly it becomes the source of his getting into trouble over it. And the thing is, they ask him who he is, who healed him, and he knew that it was Jesus of Nazareth, but he had no idea where Jesus was or what he looked like. Remember, he had not yet even seen Jesus. And yet he stands up for him. He says, obviously, if he healed me, a man born blind, of my blindness, he must be a good person. He must be a prophet. He must be somebody that God works through. He must be somebody who is known and loved by God. Well, as that controversy develops, even with the enemies of Jesus trying to involve his parents, finally, he encounters Jesus, and Jesus leads him deeper and deeper from physical sight into spiritual sight, into professing his faith in Jesus as the Messiah, as the Son of God, as the one who has come to save him and ultimately to save all of us. He leads him not only from physical darkness into light, but from ignorance, from spiritual darkness, from a clouded understanding into the clear light of his presence. Now, this gospel story is for us kind of an invitation to follow Jesus more closely and to watch what he does, to watch him be the light of God's revelation to us so that we may be the light of God's revelation to others. And so what I would like to invite you to do is to come to the parish mission every evening during this week and take a little something of a guided tour through Lent with Jesus. We will begin by going with Jesus into the desert, coming out of the water of baptism, going into the desert for 40 days, the desert of temptation. What exactly does that mean to you and to me? And then we follow him up the mountain on the second day, up the mountain of transfiguration, and discover what the vision is from that mountain. As we all know, you go up to the top of a high mountain on a clear day and you can see forever, or at least you can see the road map below you. And then we go on the third evening, we come to the woman at the well, which we heard last week, and the man born blind from this week, and next week, the raising of Lazarus. We'll walk with Jesus from Samaria to Jerusalem to Bethany, the home of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, and learn what Jesus has to teach us through these great events that we hear during Lent. And that path will take us to the cross and to the resurrection. And on the fourth night, on Thursday, I'd like to invite you to come for the sacrament of reconciliation. We will have a brief experience, liturgy, in which we'll explore what the sacrament of penance, what confession can mean to us who are seeking to live a good life, how we can make use of this wonderful sacrament that the Church has given us, that Jesus has given us, in order to allow him to remove the obstacles that keep him from getting closer to us. You know, our journey of Lent is not one of trying to get closer to Jesus, nearly as much as it is one of letting him get closer to us. And we'll learn about the sacrament of confession, of reconciliation, a little bit more deeply, how that is Jesus' gift that allows him to come closer to us. And then on the last evening, Friday, would like to invite you to celebrate Mass with us. And this Mass will explore in a little bit more depth. It'll be kind of a contemplative experience rather than an exceedingly joyful one or lively one. It'll be a bit of a contemplative experience, reflecting on how Jesus shares himself with us in the Eucharist. What did Jesus have in mind when he said, "Take and eat, this is my body given up for you. Take and drink, this is the cup of my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant, poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in memory of me." What did Jesus mean when he said those words? That's what we are going to reflect on Friday, when we actually celebrate that gift which he gave us at the Last Supper, that gift of union with him in his sacrifice on the cross. In that way, we can walk this journey of Lent, preparing for the gift of Easter, the gift of the resurrection, the gift of God's new life, having joined ourselves with the crucified Christ. God will join us with the risen Christ. So I look forward to sharing this journey with you every evening during this coming week, from 7 to 8:30 in the evening here at St. Anthony's Parish. So thank you much. I look forward to seeing all of you, and may God bless you always.